know what that sound means. It means Ernest Page is on the line and ready to answer your motoring questions, which you can start sending on 0725671567 or by email to pippah@capetalk.co.za. Ernest, of course, from changecars.co.za and all things motoring. And it's great to have you back with us, Ernest.
Oh, fantastic to be back, Pippa. And that song makes me smile every time, a bit of a chuckle as well. I'm still not used to it, so thanks for that.
Sure. Ernest, you were chatting to us a little while ago about the fact that you'd done a road trip to the Eastern Cape. And for some people, school holidays are suddenly around the corner quite soon. So we thought it might be a pertinent time to pick up on some of the advice you have to share off the back of that trip. It's been a reminder for you of some of the things one needs to think about before simply getting behind the wheel and setting off on a longer drive than normal.
Oh, yes, indeed. Lots to think about. And this was a bit of an adventure, impromptu adventure in ways. And that's what road trips are supposed to be. So you have to be prepared. So I'll talk about a couple of those things that caught me off guard, certainly. The car that I was in was the Ford Tornado Custom Titanium X, which is Ford's top of the line van with electric doors. It's got 9 seats.
Nice.
It is absolutely incredible. It's to me one of the best road trip vehicles that you can have because it's just it's so easy to drive. I'm not sure if I mentioned it. My very first job was a white van driver when I was in the UK. One of my first jobs when I went over for about a year and a half, and it was so easy. I went to the jobs office. I was young and enthusiastic. They gave me a van and said, there you go, there's your job. And I ended up driving this van. And what I realized about a good van is that it has to be comfortable for the driver to want to be in it for 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a day or whatever the case may be. And that's what this van is. So the short list of spec, it's got the 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo diesel engine, 125 kilowatts, 390 Newton meters of torque, 8-speed auto gearbox. It uses a decent amount of fuel. 7.4 liters per 100 is the claimed figure. I was getting as low as 6 when I was cruising around. And this is all, I know, it's very economical. And this is with a full load of people at times. And sometimes there were just 4 of us in the car. And then the back seats are fully customizable. So my 2 nieces were at the back. And when I say nieces, they're not young children anymore, but they certainly acted like it in the back of the van because now they can sprawl out and there's flipping chip packets everywhere, and there's a little center console that you can convert into a little table. So the seats fold forward and they become sort of center table. So in that sense, very customizable. But let's talk about what needs to be done for a road trip. And first things first, you've got to plan the route. And I am so guilty of this, Pippa. If I'm going somewhere, I just drive. And then I figure out which way I'm going as I'm going there. And I've been caught out twice in a big way like that. Once when going to Scotland, that turned into a long story. And then another time when I was driving to Gqeberha PE again, because there are 2 ways that you can go and the road then converges eventually. So plan your route. And the last time we went, I just felt the N2. The N2 way is a little bit too sketchy for me. Too many single lane, high speed roads, too many places where you have to overtake trucks, too many of that type of situation. So this time we decided we're going to take the N1 and go all the way up as far as we can and then cut across.
Interesting.
Yes, it took a little bit longer. But it's not about the time that it takes you, but it's about getting there comfortably and safely, I believe. So plan the route is number 1, I think. I'm sure you've got a story about not planning or planning too well in your case, maybe?
More likely the latter in my case,
So then inspect the tires. Make sure the tires are in good condition. And I did play around with tire pressures to lower them a little bit for a bit more comfort, but it didn't seem to make a difference, to be honest. This car ran a fairly high tire pressure of about 3 bar, and it was good for highway, it was good for inner city, and it was very comfortable as well in that sense. So check your manufacturer recommendations, but play around within about half a bar and see what works for you. But certainly something worth playing around with is tire pressures, and then checking, while at the same time checking the tire condition. And then when you look at tires, very important to look at the inside part of the sort of the inner part of the tire that we don't often look at. We just glance at the tire, it looks fine. But depending on the wheel alignment, if the wheel alignment is out, the inside of the tire can wear And
Yeah.
that can cause massive problems on the long road. I've had a blowout on the long road once when I bought a car in Joburg and I was younger. I had to phone my sister to bail me out. It was one of those situations.
Yeah.
So always good to make sure the tires are good. Even if, especially for me, I was buying a car in Joburg and I didn't check the condition of the tires before I bought the car.
That's a mistake you only make
So
once, Ernest.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Then checking fluids. This car comes with something called AdBlue. The Ford Tornado runs an additive in the diesel for emissions, and the AdBlue levels were good. But Cindy from the fleet management company, she mentioned to me, just make sure the AdBlue is good, and that's also just another tip to make sure all the oil's good, that everything's topped up,
Can I just
water,
add to
etc.,
that?
etc.
If your car requires AdBlue, just get yourself a spare bag and keep it in the back of the car, Ernest, because we've had this experience with multiple drivers in our family who have vehicles that need that stuff. It always runs out at the most inconvenient time possible when you are
Yes.
furthest away from a dealership that will have a replacement. So we have all of us who drive in those vehicles taken to actually keeping a spare, it comes in a sort of a big plastic packety type thing, keeping a
Yes,
spare
yes.
just as routine, because Bob's your uncle, it will run out when you are 2 hours away from the nearest dealership, and it's not something you can ignore for too long.
Exactly. And it's not something you get at the corner shop either. So
Yeah.
very important be prepared is really, as the Scouts motto goes, one of the things when it comes to road trips, especially stuff like something that can hurt your car in the long run if you don't use it. So then download offline apps, always good to have your GPS up to date and checked, etc. Take regular breaks. Now, I am fastidious about breaks. I don't like driving for longer than 2 hours. I can
Okay.
feel that my concentration starts dipping. And the last time I drove for too long at an endurance race, I also crashed. So
Okay,
I've learned
sure.
that lesson the hard way, that there is a cost to be paid if we're not 100% focused and zoned in. And yes, on the road, it's not, so you're not going at speed and the concentration level's low, but I can just feel when after about 2 hours of driving, about 200 Ks or so, I can feel, I'm just not as sharp as I was 20
Yeah.
minutes ago. So I tend to take regular breaks. My brother is of my father's ilk, who used to be a trucker, so he can go on forever. So he drove for like 200 Ks, stopped the car, kept going. I've just happily sat passenger for that stint because I'm not that big of a fan of driving long distance. Then, a couple other things. Always have water in the car. It's like a hike. You never know what can happen, and you might be stuck along the side of the road. So, always have enough water to make sure that at the very least you can be okay on the side of the road. And then an emergency kit,
Yeah.
jumper cables, first aid kit, flashlights. I have to say the Ford comes fully kitted with these types of things. Modern cars have a little emergency bag with a reflective vest
Yeah.
in the back oftentimes. And then one of the things that we actually ended up doing, we went to a game park in PE, and the
Yeah.
problem was that it was raining, and they told us you can only come in here with a 4x4. So I spoke to the lady. I asked her how bad is the road. She said, "Look, it's not that bad. If you're okay to drive your car in here." I said, "Look, this was part of the whole week trip." So we said, "Cool, we're going to take a chance." And I said that if we do get stuck, is there a vehicle that can rescue us? Just pull us out. That's all I'll need is just a little tug and I'll be out of a hole. It's fine. Cool. They said, yes, no problem. We'll pull you out if you get stuck. I then got the tow hook out.
Yeah.
Check that the tow hook works in the front, check that the tow hook works in the back, and now I could go driving. It's a closed game park, so I'm not going to be too far away. There was signal, all these sorts of things. But the point was that I checked the tow hooks before I needed them.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want to do in any situation, when you're in a situation where you could get stuck, is you try the tow hook out and then there is none. And now what's supposed to be a 10-15 minute problem now becomes a 2 hour problem. So with those types of things, it really just pays to be prepared. Then lastly, I made a bit of a boo-boo. There's this weird road, Eastern Cape things, in Cape Town we can't relate, where the road dips down to as low as the water line, as low as the riverbed. And that road, according to the locals, gets closed every so often when it rains hard.
Okay.
I took a nap. It rained really hard. I went to go pick my nieces up, and this road is right outside where I lived. And I took a left and I hit the road. I didn't even put my glasses on, and I suppose that's the lesson we should learn, my driving glasses. And I went into what looked like a puddle when I arrived there, but it was actually a growing riverbed.
Okay.
So luckily, the Ford's got a 300 millimeter wading depth. So the car went through quite easily. But I think, Pippa, if I had a hatchback, I might have been in a bit of trouble.
Okay.
So again, always keep an eye on the roads for road conditions. And in my case, when you go driving, put your driving glasses on immediately, not while you're still sort of pulling out the driveway like I do.
Okay, some advice gleaned the hard way in some of those experiences,
Yes.
but that's the best kind of experience to help others learn from your mistakes, Ernest. So we appreciate your owning up to them and glad that you got through all of those situations unscathed at the
Yes.
end of it. Okay, last week we heard from our listener Anne, who was thinking about selling her Honda CRV or her Renault or both and wasn't quite sure what to do. And you gave her some feedback on which of the cars she should sell if she was going to sell one. And she said, thank you so much for that. But you also said you were going to do some research for Anne, who was looking for a reliable vehicle with a nice high clearance, making it easy to get in and out of. What feedback have you got for her this week?
Yeah, so there are plenty cars in that space because effectively most cars fit into that recommendation. Most of the modern cars are generally quite high, quite easy to get into, but it's very important to note, and that because I caught my parents around and their older friends in the cars that I get, we go for drives every now and then. You don't want a car that's too high. So something like a bucky or a double cab or something that size, it's just too uncomfortable and too high to get into. And I
Yeah.
think modern buckies and vehicles like that are just expanding so much that they're actually getting bigger. So very important that you don't want something that's too high. But the list that we've come up with is some of these familiar names and just cars that I think personally I can enjoy and recommend. Again, top of the list, even though it is becoming a bit of a target, we've now got to put that on the caveat, is the Toyota Corolla Cross. Excellent reliability, high seating position, easy to get in and out of, comfortable driving for long distance and city, great fuel economy to choosing the hybrid, and strong resale value because it's a Toyota. And man, that car just wins on all fronts, doesn't it? It's good value for money. It's locally built, very reliable. Again, if you are not in Cape Town, living in Joburg, maybe then definitely worth considering that because there's so many of them being sold, they are becoming more of a theft risk. But other than
Okay.
that, Toyota Corolla Cross on top of the list in many, many ways. Then Suzuki Grand Vitara.
Yeah.
Very comfortable, easy to park and maneuver, lower maintenance cost, which is quite an interesting one. If you are going to get something that's out of warranty, anything that's a Suzuki is generally going to be easy to fix up. And then speaking of Suzuki, something a bit more stylish. What about the Suzuki Franks, which is the coupe version of Suzuki's products? It's a bit more modern, bit more stylish, excellent fuel consumption, great visibility, even for a coupe style car. And again, you've got that little bit of extra ground clearance if you want. And then another familiar one, if you've got budget restraints, then maybe a Toyota Urban Cruiser. It's got proven mechanicals. It's very affordable to run, easy to get in and out of again. Another one from let's do the Chinese wild card has got to be the Haval Jolion.
Okay.
Very spacious, comfortable, elevated seating position, but a little bit higher. So I think this is one of those cars. Yes, it is comfortable to get in and out of. But what type of comfort are you looking at? Are you looking at just sliding in at sort of waist level, so to speak?
Yeah.
Or are you looking at something that, for someone like myself, when I had back issues, it was very uncomfortable to get into certain cars because of the way the seat was positioned. So it's important to note what are the exact considerations. The Haval, I think, is probably one of the bigger ones on this list. And then other cars, wild cards would be Suzuki Grand Vitara, and then possibly anything from the Suzuki stable, because again, very comfortable, especially some of the latest Suzukis, and very, very good on gravel as well.
Okay, so Anne, you've got a list to work off there if you do decide to go ahead and sell the Renault after all of the deliberations you're going through. I hope that that's helpful in giving you a bit of direction on the choice that you have in front of you, and we wish you safe driving in whichever vehicle you end up in. Colleen and Sheldon, I'm sorry we didn't have time to get to your questions around electric vehicles, but what I will do is send those to Ernest this afternoon and ask him to research them in advance of next week's show, and we'll start there, both with questions around the cost of running EVs and the choices they've got to make based on the kind of driving that they do, which is always an interesting conversation. So Ernest, we'll pick up there next week.
Awesome. I look forward to the chat, Pippa.
Thank you, Keith. Please drive safely in the meantime. Until then, Ernest Page of changecars.co.za.